I stop. Ice what?
Whoa, whoa, baby, poke it out, poke it out, poke it out.
Hey guys, what's up? Before we get into the San Francisco 49ers, New Orleans Saints matchups to watch video, I would like to ask you if you can go ahead and subscribe to the channel. The growth we've been seeing lately has been phenomenal. I'm extremely appreciative of it, but let's keep going. Let's get that 10,000 subscribers. Maybe we can hit 9,000 before the end of the season. You never know. Go ahead and like, comment, subscribe, do all that fancy stuff, and What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today we have the New Orleans Saints versus San Francisco 49ers Week 10 matchups to watch. It's kind of depressing when you think about it. It's already Week 10. We've already been through all of these weeks of football, and the New Orleans Saints just now started the spark, and we are just starting to play the best football that we have this season, with our most complete game coming on Sunday against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who were previously considered a Super Bowl contender until we literally took a piss in their mouths. But that's besides the point. That's not what we're here to talk about today. We already took our victory lap. We already celebrated. We already, talked about all we need to talk about that Tampa Bay Buccaneers game. Everything that needed to be said has been said, so we shall move on, and we have another opponent to look forward to, which is they're not as bad as everybody says they are, man. This team is decimated with injury. It's nothing but injury holding these San Francisco 49ers back. And of course, like I said, we're going to be talking about it. We have matchups to watch: New Orleans Saints versus San Francisco 49ers. So let's go ahead and get straight into it. It's kind of hard to call this because as of right now, we don't have a clear, definitive check on the 49ers injury report because they're getting a lot of players back. We just don't 100% know who. They're still missing a lot of important pieces, though. These are all the players that they have currently on IR. I think one or two of them is eligible to come off this week, but there has been no say as if they will or not, which is kind of strange. It's already Tuesday, but let's go ahead and talk about who is on the injury reserve for the San Francisco 49ers. So we got Nick Bosa, which is absolutely ginormous, one of the best pass rushers in the league. Jimmy Garoppolo, which isn't really that big of a deal. Nick Mullins even has played a little bit better than him at some points this season. George Kittle, which all of us New Orleans Saints fans know what George Kittle's capable of. Raheem Mostert, which is big as well. He's actually eligible to come off. We don't know if he will yet, but he is. Jeff Wilson, running back. Ben Garland, their center. Richard Sherman, which is their number one corner by far, the lockdown corner. Super old, but still has a lot of ability. Richard Sherman is a great corner, but is still on injury reserve until after the bye, which is after the Saints game, so he will not be playing this week. D Ford is also on injury reserve. So is Solomon Thomas, along with Ezekiel Anza. So a lot of important pieces for the San Francisco 49er team are not going to be able to play this week against the New Orleans Saints. Because of that, it's really hard to pinpoint matchups because they're missing so many important pieces on that team. So today will mostly be based on position groupings. We will be talking about individual players within those groupings. But because of the amount of players that will be filling in for other players, it's hard to tell what one-on-one matchups will be. So I'm sorry about that, but we still have a good episode here for you guys, so don't you worry. Let's go ahead and get into the first matchup we have to watch this week. The first matchup we have to watch this week is the Saints secondary versus the San Francisco 49ers wide receiver group. The 49ers wide receiver group is finally almost completely healthy heading into this game, per the reports that have surfaced recently. Brandon Ayuk is coming back along with wide receiver Deebo Samuel, who was great for San Francisco last year. Brandon Ayuk only has 28 receptions on the season, but he has 371 yards and 2 touchdowns off of those 28 receptions. He is an absolute yardage machine and has been making the best out of those snaps that he is receiving. He missed last week's contest versus the Green Bay Packers, in which San Francisco faced an insane 34-17 defeat, which wasn't really earned by the Packers, man. They played a practice squad roster. Poor 49ers fans, bro. Deebo Samuel, on the other hand, has missed a majority of this season for varying reasons, only having 16 receptions for 185 yards and 1 touchdown through 4 games. He is great when he's on the field, but he has to be on the field to be great, and that's what has been his struggle this year. Hopefully, he plays a full game versus the Saints in his return. That he got activated off the COVID list. I can only assume he's going to be playing this week, unless he has an underlying injury that I'm not aware of. There will be an extensive, in-depth look at the 49ers injury report as soon as we get our hands on it, so don't worry about that. The New Orleans Saints secondary is coming off a good game in which they held Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Antonio Brown, Rob Gronkowski on a Tom Brady-led offense to 3 points. A lot of it had to do with coaching, but there were 3 interceptions grabbed by the secondary, multiple passes defended, and just generally good coverage throughout the board. It was absolutely insane to see. We need to use that game as a confidence boost moving forward, and we need to have another good game with our secondary against the San Francisco 49ers. San Fran is depleted, but they're far from a garbage team. Nick Mullins can be a good quarterback when he gets it going, so being at the top of our game is still 100% necessary. This could be a game where the Saints downplay their opponent and get stunned, so please, New Orleans, avoid doing that. Let's go ahead and look at the statistics of our Saints defensive back group last week against a Tom Brady-led offense that had every single vending machine wide receiver at their disposal. An absolutely stacked group, but the New Orleans Saints performed. Let's go over their stats. Marshawn Lattimore, he played a great game. He had a 64.6 passer rating allowed, which is great. The max is 158.3. He had a 50% completion percentage allowed. He only allowed 3 catches on 6 targets, which is really good. And he only allowed 30 yards throughout the entirety of this game. Janoris Jenkins, on the other hand, played almost identical to Marshawn Lattimore, having a 66.7 passer rating allowed, which, remember, 158.3 is the maximum, a 50% completion percentage allowed, 3 passes caught on 6 targets, and he only allowed 33 yards. The similarities between these two cornerbacks last week was absolutely insane. That number 1 and that number 2 looked like that number 1 and that number 2 last week. They looked like an insane lockdown corner duo, and we need that moving forward. Chauncey Gardner Johnson, who has had a bit of a rough start to the season on different occasions, he's been wildly inconsistent, had a good game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers with only allowing a 74.7 passer rating. He had a 57.1% completion percentage allowed, 4 passes caught on 7 targets, and only allowed 49 yards, which is, again, great, especially when he's in the slot covering the middle of the field. It's a lot easier to get picked on in that area of the field than it is on the outside boundaries, like where Marshawn Lattimore and Janoris Jenkins spend the most of their time. The reason I told you guys all of these stats is because, like I said, they came against one of the greatest quarterbacks in NFL history in Tom Brady. This shows our secondary's capabilities to try to replicate this performance as much as they can against the San Francisco 49ers. I'm telling you guys, it's a 100% necessity. The next matchup we have to watch is Drew Brees versus the San Francisco 49ers defense. The San Francisco 49ers allowed massive numbers to Aaron Rodgers at the quarterback position last week. Let's just go over those real quick, dude. Aaron Rodgers had an 80% completion percentage, which, believe it or not, is pretty rare for Aaron Rodgers. 305 passing yards and 4 passing touchdowns. It's absolutely unbelievable. Drew Brees is coming off a similar game himself against a defense that, in my opinion, right now is 20 times better, and not when fully healthy, San Fran fans. I promise you I'll take San Francisco's 49ers defense completely healthy over the Buccaneers any day of the week. But Drew Brees had an 81.2 completion percentage, 222 passing yards, and 4 passing touchdowns of his own with no interceptions. We will see how this transpires, but the 49ers defense will absolutely have to buckle down on Drew Brees if they want a chance at winning this game, and that is not an exaggeration. Let's move on to the third and final matchup to watch of this game, and that is Michael Thomas versus Emmanuel Mosley. Now, I had a hard time figuring out who to put here because I'm not entirely sure who Michael Thomas will be lining up with the majority of the game, but because Michael Thomas lines up for most of the time at left slot or left outside, I gave it to right cornerback of the 49ers, Emmanuel Mosley, because obviously it's flipped. Emmanuel Mosley has had 2 terrible games back-to-back, allowing a 156.6 passer rating 2 weeks ago and a 156.2 passer rating this week against the Packers. He has allowed 186 yards and 3 touchdowns over the past 2 games. The 49ers played a ton of zone coverage last week against the Packers, which would probably be worse than leaving Emmanuel Mosley one-on-one and man-to-man press coverage against Michael Thomas the way Drew Brees dices it up. But we won't know who exactly is going to be one-on-one with Michael Thomas, if anyone will ever be one-on-one with Michael Thomas, because it's Michael Thomas. Expect the person to be on Michael Thomas to be completely different every play. Expect there to be more than one person on Michael Thomas a majority of the game. They didn't do too much doubling on Devontae Adams last week, but knowing and learning from their mistakes, they'll probably do the same, do doubling against a star wide receiver in this league. Coming back for the first time in 8 weeks, playing with tape on his hamstring, Michael Thomas still recorded 5 receptions for 51 yards on 6 targets. He only played 40 snaps, which is literally half of what the game offered for him, which is way lower than a lot of people expected, even though we knew he was going to have a limited role in this game. Expect him to have a big game, even healthier than he was last week. I'm excited to see what he can do against this depleted San Francisco 49ers defense. Let me know down in the comment section below what you guys think are the top 3 matchups we should be watching in this game. I appreciate you guys' feedback, and I'll see you boys in the next one. Adios.
Zero gravity falling. Like I'm jumping on a trampoline.